Guys, and welcome back to the channel. I hope everybody is doing well. It has been a minute since I've uploaded for you guys, but I figured I would return today with a very first for this channel, which would be my official predictions for UFC 282 next weekend, which is a huge card with two of the absolute biggest monsters of the light heavyweight division clashing for the vacant light heavyweight title that was unfortunately passed down by Yuri Prochazka after suffering a severe shoulder injury. It will put him out of action for at least 6 months to a year, which is very unfortunate, but now we have a new main event for that belt, which is Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev, and I'm going to go ahead and get right into my predictions for this fight, and I'm going to stick to the main card and the main prelims. I'm going to skip early prelims and just stick to the main fights, and we're going to try to get through this, and man, what an absolute fantastic card we have. So, for the upcoming light heavyweight vacant title fight, we have Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev. I call him the Russian landmine. The guy is just an absolute silent assassin. If you step in the pocket with him, you make any offensive mistakes, he detonates and makes you pay, as you saw in his fights with Ion Cutelaba, especially in that second fight. Ion rushed in, he got reckless, he overswung, and Magomed put him out with a 1-2 and followed up with nasty ground and pound on the ground to put him out cold. Magomed is an absolute killer. He's very defensively aware. He moves laterally very well. He has fantastic cage awareness. He is always reading you, always downloading you. And Jan has that Polish power. Jan has that presence. He has that power, that striking technique. But I think the difference is going to be the movement in this fight. Magomed's movement and his ability to download you, to read you, to force you into mistakes. And I think he beats Jan Blachowicz to the punch in most of these exchanges. And he will take his time, he will wait for you to come in, and he will counter you and make you pay. I think Magomed Ankalaev is our new light heavyweight champion by the end of the night. And I have seen championship potential in him for quite a few years now. I actually called it about a year or two ago that he would be a future light heavyweight champion, and so far that has proven true. I mean, just smashing through everybody, coming off the win against Anthony Smith, and now I think he will outclass and beat Jan Blachowicz for this belt. I think he can possibly knock Jan out. I am predicting a second to third round TKO, possible out cold KO, but if not, I think he takes the majority of the rounds and beats Jan to the decision to become the new light heavyweight champion. I mean, he's just so tactical, so good, and so much power in those hands. And moving on to our co-main event, we have Paddy the Baddy Pimblett versus Jared Flash Gordon. And this is a very, very solid test for Paddy Pimblett here. I mean, Jared Gordon has been in the UFC for quite a while. He's almost a mini UFC vet. He's had many fights. He is not a particularly deadly fighter in any one area. He's a solid, well-rounded fighter, but he's not very much of a threat in any particular area. He's not, a devastating striker. He doesn't have knockout power. He's not a jiu-jitsu specialist, but he is just a solid, tough fighter, and I think this could be a very interesting fight for the first round at least. I think the first round is going to be a feeling out process. They're going to be trying to kind of gauge where, each other's at. Paddy's going to be kind of trying to figure out how he can get in on him, but I think eventually Paddy gets in on him, starts to land some shots, finds his timing, and gets Jared down, and I think he submits him. I am predicting Paddy takes a second round rear naked choke submission. Any kind of submission, actually, but I mean, his specialty is the rear naked. But I think Paddy finds the timing, gets Jared down, and gets the submission somewhere in the second round. And I think he takes this win and continues the dominant Paddy the Baddy streak. But I think Jared could give him some trouble in that first round, just in the downloading, finding the range. And, they might exchange for a little bit, but I think ultimately Paddy takes this win by second round submission, and if he cannot submit Jared, easily takes the decision. Moving on to the third fight in a huge welterweight striker's delight, we have ruthless Robbie Lawler, an absolute fan favorite and all-time legend, versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, an absolutely deadly assassin sniper from Argentina, and this is a huge fight. Robbie Lawler is an absolute legend. Who doesn't love Lawler? He has given us some of the most classic insane wars in UFC history. His war with Rory McDonald. All the insane fights he's had. He's just fantastic. Unfortunately, we are starting to see the official decline of Robbie Lawler. He has hit that stage in his career where he is taking steady losses. He is 40 years old, and I hate to say it, but I think we see Robbie Lawler retire in 2023. I don't think he regains his former glory. I think he continues to lose against, faster, younger competition, and unfortunately, that's exactly what I see here with Santiago. He is lightning fast. He is quick, he is deadly, he is accurate, and I think this is a massive problem for Robbie Lawler on the feet. I think he can survive early for a little bit, they could have some exchanges, but at the end, I think Santiago's speed, his precision, and his power winds up beating Robbie Lawler to the punch, and I think he possibly TKOs Robbie Lawler in the second or third round, mostly the second, but if not, I think he takes the decision on Lawler and completely and comfortably outstrikes him, and we see Robbie Lawler, unfortunately, take another sad and heart-wrenching loss. But yeah, unfortunately, we love you, Lawler, but, he's 40 years old. I think this is the end of his career, and I think Santiago takes this win pretty comfortably. Moving on, we are looking at Darren the Gorilla Till making his return against the up-and-coming hot prospect Dricus Duplessis out of South Africa. And this is a pretty interesting fight. Unfortunately for Darren Till, he came into the UFC red hot, had a lot of potential. He was looking like a possible future champion. Steamrolling Donald Cerrone, just looking very crisp and sharp. And then Darren just started to fall off a cliff, and he's had a lot of losses over the years. He's been on kind of just a losing streak, and he's been out a long time, and the last time he fought was over a year ago, and he's just had problems in the cage. He's had weird issues that have prevented him from returning outside of the cage, and Dricus has looked, absolutely incredible. He knocked out Marcus Perez, he knocked out Trevin Giles, and then when he was in the Brad Tavares fight, what an absolute war, but he dug deep, got a second wind, and came back and put it on Brad Tavares to pick up that win, and he looked incredible doing it. And I think Dricus Duplessis takes this win and beats the returning Darren Till. He just looks so sharp, so well-rounded. He's got a great gas tank, excellent cardio, great hands, and I think we see Till struggle with the time off, and I think Dricus winds up beating him to a clear decision. I think Darren Till can have moments in this fight. He does have very good movement. He darts in and out very well. But I think Dricus is going to be too much for him. He's young, he's hungry, and he's very well-rounded. And I think Darren Till is going to have a problem. He is 1-4 in his last 5 for Darren Till. And again, his last fight was over a year ago. So I take Dricus Duplessis for the decision win. Maybe possibly a finish on Till, but I don't think he finishes Till. I think it's an easy decision on his end. Next up, we have Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell versus Ilia Topuria, and what a huge, huge fight for up-and-coming, undefeated prospects. This is an absolute barn burner. This is going to be a very interesting fight because this is a pure grappler versus a pure striker. And obviously we know Bryce Mitchell is going to come into this fight and look to take Ilia down right away. He is going to look for that takedown. He's going to look to take him against the cage, get him down to the ground, and suffocate him and look for that submission. But Ilia Topuria's stand-up has looked phenomenal. He has devastating power in his hands, knocking out Jai Herbert with a vicious overhand right in his last fight. So this is a pure grappler versus striker, and such an interesting fight. I think the tone of this fight will be set by what Bryce Mitchell is able to do in that first round. If Bryce Mitchell is able to take Ilia down in the first round easily and comfortably and hold him down, that is going to set the tone for Bryce's win, and he will most likely continue to do that through the first, second, and third round and take the decision win. But if Bryce cannot get Ilia down in that first round, or if Ilia continues to get up easily and find ways up, I think Ilia beats him on the feet with the striking and the power, and possibly knocks Mitchell out for the first time ever, but I don't really see it. I think Ilia Topuria takes this win by a hair on the feet and outstrikes Bryce Mitchell. Now, again, if Bryce can get him down, hold him down, take him, drag him into his world, and continually do that, Bryce easily has the win. But, as long as Ilya stays on the feet and can avoid these takedowns, I think he keeps his streak going, and we see Bryce Mitchell take his first loss. So I am going with Ilya Topuria to take the decision win over Bryce Mitchell. And that wraps it up for the main card. We will move right down to the prelims. And we have Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rosenstruck returning against Chris Daukaus, and what a huge heavyweight bout of, absolute power punchers here. Jairzinho, is a secondary power puncher to Francis Ngannou. Devastating one-punch power. Chris Daukaus is a tactical, moves very well, very good hands, a lot of good movement. He's not very stationary, but he is coming off of 2 knockout losses to Curtis Blades and to Derek Lewis, which was an absolute vicious knockout. Derek bull rushed him against the cage, unloaded on him, put him out. So a very tough time for Chris Daukaus. But I think in this fight he can get back on track. As long as he uses his movement, he moves, he stays on the outside, he picks his shots, and he can avoid Jairzinho's big explosive power, I think Chris Daukaus can get back on the winning track here. Now, if he steps into the pocket with Jairzinho, at any minute that man is a grenade. If he touches you, it's lights out. So Chris has to be very careful in this fight. He is literally going to be dancing around on a wire connected to a grenade. And if he makes any mistake for a second, Jairzinho will plant and put him out cold like he did Overeem, like he did so many other people. So Daukaus just has to be very defensively aware. He has to keep moving, he has to stay lateral, he has to stay off the cage, he cannot get closed in, keep his head off the center line, and try to pick Jairzinho apart. I think he does it, and I think Chris Daukaus takes the decision win as long as he does not get in any crazy exchanges and eat any huge bombs. Otherwise, he's going to sleep. So, Chris Daukaus by a hair on this fight to take the decision win over Jairzinho Rosenstruck. Hopefully he can keep that movement going and stay out of the line of fire. Next up, we have the Dana White Contender Series, Raul Rosa Jr. versus Jay Perrin. And I will be totally honest, I have not been watching Dana White's Contender Series that much. I did not see Raw's last fight. Of course, I have seen Jay Perrin fight. He is on a 2-fight losing streak. I don't know a whole lot about Raw, but I know that this is an easy setup for the next big contender from Dana White's Contender Series, the next big name, the next big star that they want to build, and I think Raul Rosa Jr. takes this win over Jay Perrin, and this is an easy stepping stone for him to get a big win and start to build a name in the UFC, because I know they see star potential in this kid, and just looking at their records, I think Raul has the abilities here to beat the on the loss streak Jay Perrin. So I will take him to win this fight on decision. And we will move on down to Edmund Shabazian versus Dalcha Lugambula. And this is a huge, crazy explosive fight. Edmund Shabazian, coming out of Ronda Rousey's camp with Edmund Tverdian, this kid had so much promise when he came into the company. He looked like he was going to be an absolute problem in the division. And then, unfortunately, he just fell off a cliff. He has lost his last 3 fights. He came in on 4 wins, or actually started off with 4 wins, but then just, hit a wall, started losing fights badly, and it just has not been good for Edmund. And I think for a long time he has needed a camp change to get away from Edmund Tverdian, because he did not lead Ronda Rousey down a good road for a while. Ronda Rousey took a lot of losses. And with Dalcha, he's strong, he's muscular. This guy is just a beast. And he's got power, but his cardio is bad, and he tends to fade as the fight goes. Now, early in the fight, he's kind of one shot, can hit you, hurt you. But outside of that, he just doesn't have much in terms of combination striking, technical striking, offensive awareness, and he's very heavily muscled. So, I think in this fight, Edmund Shabazian can actually get back on track. If he has cleaned up the holes in his game, if he has trained with other coaches, gotten some better knowledge, I think he could easily win this fight just by picking Dalcha apart, using that height and reach and really avoiding that power. I think Edmund has a very good chance of getting back on track, and I predict him to get the job done by decision against Dalcha, get around the poor cardio and the heavily muscled frame, and just be able to pick him apart in between the power shots. And here we go for the final prelim of the night, or main prelim, we have Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley, and this is a striker's delight, huge fight. Chris Curtis coming in a few months ago on short notice, picking up some huge wins against Adolfo Vieira, Brendan Allen, Phil Hawes, and looked very good doing it. And then, of course, Joaquin Buckley is an absolute just powerhouse, explosive, fast, agile, and this is such a great fight. But in this fight, it's such a 50-50 coin flip, but I am going to edge Joaquin Buckley with that speed and that movement. Chris Curtis has power in his hands, but he tends to be a little stationary. He doesn't move a lot on his feet. He doesn't move side to side. But Joaquin Buckley, it's just all over the place. A lot of big movements, and he maintains the cardio through it. So I don't, expect Joaquin to gas. His cardio holds up, and I think that movement should be able to edge him this win. The in and out, the touching, the volume striking around Chris Curtis's power. Now, if they get in a crazy exchange, Chris Curtis could wind up hurting him and pulling off something crazy. But I think if Joaquin comes in on his P's and Q's, he looks sharp, he looks accurate, I think he gets this job done, and he takes the decision win over Chris Curtis. So that is pretty much my predictions for UFC 282. Thank you so much for joining me. And everybody, I hope you have a great day. Great fight week coming up, and we will do some more card openings, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.